do you match that introduction? For those of you who don't know me, my name's Craig DeLuz, and I'm with the Firearms Policy Coalition. Now, what I'll tell you, and I think one of the most important things to understand about FPC is that, you know, we're not a conservative group. We're not a liberal group. We're not a public safety group. We are a Second Amendment civil rights advocacy group. And I think it's important for you guys to understand that, because we've allowed the term civil rights to be hijacked, right? The definition of a civil right are inherent inalienable human rights that are available to all citizens. It's available to you. It's available to you. It's available to me. It's available to all citizens. Now, in case there was any question as to what those rights were, the founders decided they were going to put together this little set of rights called the Bill of Rights. You guys heard a little bit about that earlier, right? I think some schools still teach about that, those 10 little things. But what people don't stop to think about is this, is if you read those 10 rights, that is all about putting controls on the government. It's about telling the government what they cannot do. And then government has spent the next 200 years trying to do exactly that, trying to take those rights away from we, the citizens. But see, what happens is every so often we have the opportunity for nonviolent revolution. It's called an election. Folks, I have to tell you, there is nothing harder than going before a bunch of anti-gun people and convince them to do pro-gun things. To go talk to people who believe in certain civil rights for certain people. Definitely not for you. And definitely not that right that comes after that whole free speech thing. Oh, but don't get it twisted. See, they don't believe in all civil rights for all people. You know, one of the things I've noticed is how they try to use the other rights, take away those other rights in order to keep us from advocating for our Second Amendment rights. How many of you know that if someone owns a gun store, they can't have a picture of a handgun on the outside of their store? How many of you here know that? How many of you know that if your child goes to some schools in this state or in this country and they wear an NRA t-shirt or an FPC t-shirt or a t-shirt that I'm wearing right now that says equality on it, they're going to be told to take it off? They can wear all those sorts of madness. But when it comes to those who advocate for a fundamentally, constitutionally enumerated civil right, I say that on purpose. I don't know if any of you have ever seen any of our videos, but I say that specifically because I want people to understand, number one, that the right is fundamental. Even if it were not in the Bill of Rights, even if it were not in the Constitution, it is an inalienable right, meaning you have it and no one can take it. I say that it's constitutional because I want people to know that as a governing document, yeah, it's in there. I have a right to that. If there's a reason why we've had so many victories in court, it's because the anti-gunners and the judges have a hard time getting past that whole "thou shalt not infringe" part of the Second Amendment. And I want them to understand that it's a right. I don't need you to sit there and tell me you don't know why I need a 30-round magazine. I don't need you to sit there and tell me it doesn't matter if you don't see a need for me to own more than one gun. It doesn't matter if you don't. My right, my fundamental right to be able to defend myself and my family has nothing to do with what you believe I need. My wife's family is from Fiji, and they don't have a right to keep and bear arms there. And one of the things she would tell me about often is every generation, every other generation, there always seemed to be a coup. And they have no right. So what would happen is then the new government would just come in and take whatever they wanted. Well, guess why? Because they don't have a fundamental right to defend themselves. See, it was funny. So the other day, a family member that lives in England decided to post on my Facebook wall, well, you know, I wish you would advocate for something like, you know, like the children in Syria and how they're under attack, and help advocate for them to have a safe place to live. And I said, you know, the reason why I advocate for the Second Amendment is because the people of Syria, they didn't have a fundamental right to defend themselves against either terrorists or a tyrannical government. I advocate for the Second Amendment so that someday, so that years from now, someone like you isn't messaging someone like me, asking me, why don't I protest, why don't I get active in order to find a safe place for the children of America? You know, when we run for office, when you run for office, or when you go to serve publicly, you know, you swear an oath to defend this nation from enemies, foreign and domestic. And that is up to and including a tyrannical government. Now, our founders got that. That's the reason why they put it there, because they understood that eventually we might, not only did we have a right, if you read the Declaration of Independence, we don't just have a right to stand up against the tyrannical government, we have a responsibility to stand up against the tyrannical government. We start with our right to free speech, the First Amendment, the right to be able to petition our government, the right to be able to stand before the California legislator, our city council members, our county board of supervisors, our school board members, our congressmen, and say that this is an inalienable right and it shall not be infringed. And if you decide to do so, we will kick your ass out of office. And if you have someone who represents you here right now who's doing that, that's great, that's wonderful. But see, in the California legislature, it's based on a majority, right? A majority means 50% plus one. Now, maybe you haven't guessed. Maybe you don't know. In case you didn't know, I'll tell you. Yeah, 50% plus one of the legislature is not pro-Second Amendment. I know, it's a shock. It's a shocker, I get it. But see, that can change. Because, see, politics is like war, and war is about taking territory. And if we have secured ourselves here, then we need to look to the districts to the north, the south, the east, and the west. I know I probably just pointed in the wrong directions, but I don't care. We need to look where in our neighboring areas, where can we make a difference? Where can we find a pro-gun candidate, a pro-Second Amendment candidate that will stand up, not just vote right, but one who believes what we believe and who will stand up and fight. And I wanted to make that really clear because, you know, one of the most disappointing days for me, and I will just tell you, I am a card-carrying member of the vast right-wing conspiracy. I sincerely doubt there are anyone more right-wing than me here. But I'll tell you this, one of the saddest days for me as a Republican was when in the California legislature, when these gunpocalypse bills, when these clearly anti-Second Amendment bills were being pushed through the legislature, when they ignored their own rules, their own laws, they ignored common sense and reason in order to push these bills through, all the Republicans could do was a couple got up and gave speeches. And some of them were fine speeches. But where was the outrage? I watched Democrats, anti-gun Democrats in Congress stage a sit-in, right? I was upset because I'm like, if I had been in there, I'd have got up and I'd have left. I'd have said, you don't need me here. If you are going to ignore your own rules, your own laws, that is the very definition of a tyrannical government, and I will not be a part of it. It is important, and I love rallies. I love rallies because a rally is about the opportunity to come together, to hear, to get informed, and to get motivated. But being motivated is absolutely no good. Being informed is absolutely no good if you do not take action. Action is what makes a difference. Action is what wins games, right? If you don't, I just be honest, if you're not being active, if you are giving of your time, your talent, and your treasury in order to advance the Second Amendment, then you are a cheerleader. I've been playing sports a lot, maybe not as much in the last few years, but I played sports, and there's one thing I do know. Cheerleaders, we love you, but you don't win football games. You don't win basketball games. We have to be active. We have to be engaged and informed. We are the gateway on the Second Amendment. I'll be honest with you, we're the gun nuts. We are the ones who believe in this. It's our job, in part, to educate those around us who say they're Second Amendment. They support the Second Amendment, but they support reasonable gun laws. Well, what's a reasonable gun law? See, the devil is in the details. And we need to be active and engaged in order to help them to better understand those details. So let me tell you first, you need to be finding out who that's running around you is pro-Second Amendment. And you need to support them, even if it's giving them $1, even if it's giving them one day, making phone calls, or talking to neighbors, or hosting a coffee. You need to help them. You need to help them get elected. If you have not signed the Veto Gunmageddon petitions, you need to be signing those petitions. Because Nikki is right. Let me tell you something. If we were able to get this on the ballot, it would drive them crazy. And we would have the next 2 years to build up in order to be able to win this particular battle. But folks, it only happens if we're active and engaged, right? There are plenty of organizations where you can find information. I happen to be partial to the Firearms Policy Coalition. But guess what? There's CRPA, there's NRA, there's Gun Owners of California. You can go just about anywhere. All you got to Google. I'm just going to say Google. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But there are tons of places you can go to get information and get opportunities to be engaged. But if you are not engaged, if you are not involved in the fight, then you're not part of the solution. You're part of the problem. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be part of the problem. I got tired of being part of the problem. I got tired of not being active, involved, and engaged. Folks, it's up to us to educate ourselves and educate those around us. Each and every one of us have a sphere of influence. The Firearms Policy Coalition, our social media presence went from nothing to over 250,000, largely because we knew people who knew people. I know people who know people. You know people who know people. Spread the word. The revolution is coming. And thanks to the mainstream media, the revolution will not be televised. Let me just say this, and I'm going to close with this. This is not just a fight for the Second Amendment. This is a fight for our civil rights. They want to restrict our ability to be able to speak about the Second Amendment. They want to come in and seize our firearms, violating our private property rights. They want to treat you like you're a criminal, violating your right to due process. They want to shut you down and not let you be involved in the electoral process. I'll tell you, it's sad. You go in the legislature, in the assembly committee, each side gets 2 representatives. Each one gets 2 minutes. Now, considering the fact that they don't know what their bills do, and we do, only having 2 minutes, that is the democratic process. That is full, open, and honest debate to them. Folks, it's not just about the Second Amendment. It's about taking our government back. It really is. Having some common sense, and I know that's an overused word in politics, but having some common sense. I found that common sense is not that common. But I find for people who understand their rights, who understand the right to free speech, the right to due process, the right to private property, who understand their right to keep and bear arms. I find that those people are common sense people. Those people who understand that this is a fight for civil rights, and if we do not use them, we will lose them. Thank you very much.
If you like these updates, please share them with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel.